Welcome, friends, to Inks and Issues, a book club podcast for comics. I'm your host, the ever-loving green-eyed Jonah.
What? Ever-loving green-eyed? What is that from?
The ever-loving blue-eyed thing? Get with the program. We're covering Fantastic Four today, Kieran.
Well, I'm Kieran, and this is the first Fantastic Four I've ever read.
Ever?
I think I read one issue of Ultimate Fantastic Four when I was like 10 years old, but other than that, no, This is it.
So it left quite the impression, is what you're trying to tell me.
Well, yeah, it always does.
Yeah. Well, I am a huge fan of the Fantastic Four because...
Are you? What?
Yeah. Well, you see, there was a time when most of my comics were actually because my brother collected comics. And a thing that Marvel has done... forever. Hey. They will release old comics in big collections. And they were doing that even when I was a kid in like the 80s. And my brother had the Fantastic Four reprint that was the first 12 to 24 issues. I don't remember exactly. It was a lot of issues for a kid.
A lot of issues for a kid. Yeah.
It felt like the biggest book I'd ever read in my entire life. So basically, I grew up reading and rereading the first story arcs of the Fantastic Four. So they hold a special place in my heart. It's one of the things that got me very into comics. And I'm kind of shocked we've never gotten around to reviewing any Fantastic Four books.
Yeah, I was looking through our our spreadsheet of like everything we've ever reviewed. This is the first Fantastic Four we've ever reviewed, and this is actually the first Grant Morrison book we've ever reviewed, which I also find really surprising. Yeah, because I was looking through his bibliography so that I could be like, and he's been on the show before because he wrote, and I was like, we've never reviewed any of this stuff.
Wow. Well, that's a bit shocking.
I'm sure there's like an Inks and Issues super fan who will like at me on Twitter and be like, actually, in episode 24, you blah, blah, blah. And I'll be like, sure, if you say so, man.
That was so long ago. We were so young.
Oh, so young.
I was actually curious now, and I believe issue 24, according to Google, is actually Batwoman Part 1. So.
Oh, yeah. Oh, what a great time that was. I love that book.
We had Sam on that episode.
Oh, my God, Sam. Yeah. Fuck.
Remember Sam?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were going to do, actually, at one point, when we were first planning, like, guests and stuff, there was a person who shall not be named that was very interested in being a guest, and that fell through because of reasons that I can't get into on this podcast. So Kieran will probably know exactly what I'm talking about with very little clues. So Kieran, do you have some fun facts for us?
I mean, I feel like fun facts is like it sets so many expectations. But
the only expectation that I have is that we're having fun chatting with each other.
Oh my God. Stop. You make me blush. You make me blush. I'm going to cry. Okay, so today we are reviewing Fantastic Four 1, 2, 3, 4. That's actually the full name. The full name is Fantastic Four 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not Fantastic Four number 1, 2, 3, and 4. But
that's what I thought.
Yeah. No, it's very confusing and
sorely
difficult
mistaken.
to Google.
Yes. Yeah. Marvel Knights Fantastic Four is probably the easiest way to find it.
Marvel Knights is what it's called. And it was first published in October of 2001, which is so long ago.
Wow, what a different world we lived in back then, huh?
I'll say. So it was written by Grant Morrison, who I mentioned before has not actually been on the show before. Grant Morrison's Grant Morrison, you know what I mean? He's done a ton of really weird stuff, like Animal Man, Doom Patrol. He's done a bunch of Action Comics, All-Star Superman. He currently does the Green Lantern comic that's coming out right now with art by Liam Sharp, who was also the artist for a Wonder Woman that we reviewed way back in the day.
Oh, okay.
And that Green Lantern is really, really good, I have to say. And reading this, and then also reading that Green Lantern, very distinctive style that Grant Morrison has.
Mm-hmm. I would say so.
Oh, I think we could all definitely agree on that one. And the art is by Jay Lee, who, if you just like look at some of the pages for this, you might recognize his style. And he's done like a ton of stuff. A lot of like Batman, Action Comics, some stuff for Image like The Darkness and Witchblade. The thing that I knew him from, which when I saw his name and then saw the credit, I was like, oh, that's what he did. He did all the art for the Dark Tower comics based off the Stephen King books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he's
Did you
that.
read those?
No, I've never read them.
Okay.
But I have. So this is one of those like real weird like childhood memories. My local library up the road from my school had like a comic section, and they had all of the Dark Tower comics. And for whatever reason, like no one ever got them out from the library, so they had like a little display where like you could see the covers of the books, and the Dark Tower books sat there for like 2 years, no one getting them out from the library.
Wow.
So I always remember looking at them and being like, oh, that looks interesting. And then just getting something else out from the library. Like I've just never read them.
Not a Dark Tower fan, huh?
Oh no, I love Dark Tower.
Oh, you just never read the comics.
This is the confusing. Yeah, because at the time I was like 10 or whatever.
Yeah, I've only read the first book, and then I started the second book, and I'm like, wow, the tonal shift is pretty extreme between these two books.
Yes, I was just about to say, and the tonal shift between Dark Tower 1 and Dark Tower 2 is massive. It's so huge.
Yeah. But there was that part where he's eating giant crabmen for a while. That was weird.
Yeah. It's real weird. He's like on the beach being eaten by giant crabs, and there's like a whole like, it's not even a subplot. It's like the whole main plot is him trying to get like penicillin or something out of like a magic portal so that he can like not die. After like, I think he like loses a couple fingers to the crabs or something like that.
It's real weird.
It's really weird. Yeah, so those are our fun facts. No, like no lawsuits or anything, I'm afraid.
Yeah, nothing fun like a lawsuit.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're gonna cover these issues, and we'll just dive right in then. So
yeah, let's do it.
I'm sure you knew the setup, because this kind of assumes you knew that for the most part. Of Fantastic Four, I mean.
Like who they are, you mean?
Like who they are, that they're a family, that they have powers, that they're explorers and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay. So this starts with Ben Grimm, the Thing, in case you weren't following along, having a bad day. He's been saving New York's finest from some villainous threats, and they're basically like, hey, get out of here. You're making it worse. And he's like, this is
pretty much.
Yeah, and they're like, you guys need to stick to like your space exploring and whatnot, and stop trying to superhero it up. And I'm like, yeah, they really should, because those are their best stories. So Ben, being all, being the Thing and being Ben, gets all grumpy and disgusted at these policemen. He's like, you guys would have been dead if it wasn't for me, but I guess I'll leave.
Yeah, pretty much.
And he goes home, where he finds Sue and Johnny Storm, who are siblings, if people are somehow unaware.
They might be. Who knows?
They are also giving him a hard time, which they kind of all do that all the time anyway, because they're supposed to be like a family, and so they kind of fight and tease each other and stuff sometimes, But the big thing is, like, Sue is talking about how Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, he's been holed up in his deep thinking space, his man cave.
Essentially, yeah.
This man cave is more like a man's grave. That's from a very, very funny skit from what's that show called?
Saturday Night Live?
No, it's a better show than that. I'll have to think of the name of it. It's a podcast, and then it was a show.
It's a podcast.
Yeah.
My brother and me?
No, it's got Scott Aukerman in it.
It's
got a weird name. Why am I blanking on this?
Oh.
I'm just gonna go to the old Google, because
just find out what the show is.
This is gonna tick me off, because it's right here. Here comes Comedy Bang Bang.
Oh, damn it! That was going to be like my fourth or like my fifth guess.
So that was a real long way to go for nothing. So look up that skit, and then it'll all have been worth it. Oh boy! So he's in his man's grave space for the last 36 hours, and Johnny is being Johnny. So he's
she's being a real doughbag.
driving fast cars, being a real dickhead to everybody.
Pretty much.
And then Sue calls her sister to complain about Reed, which is actually her sister-in-law, I believe.
Okay, right, yeah, because I wasn't sure. Their relationship is not, like, concretely explained, so I think I refer to...
No, they definitely assume you know who this character is.
Right, okay. My bad, everyone. I have written sister throughout all of my notes.
That's okay.
Only to now realize that I was the fool.
So they chat, but nothing's resolved. So she's frustrated and leaves, and Ben is left alone with Reed and grumbles that they need something to do because when they're bored because Reed isn't there to like take them on wacky adventures, then they just kind of start fighting with each other because
basically, yeah, it's a very interesting look. Well, I mean, I thought. At the Fantastic Four, where he was like, if we don't have something for us to do, and you're not like providing some kind of outlet for our like powers, we start like thinking inwards about like what happened to us, and then we start getting like real grumpy and pissed off, and like it's just not a good time for anyone. So we need you here to basically take us on adventures, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and usually Ben Grimm is the one that is the most guilty of that because, he's like, you turned me into this horrible monster. And
yeah,
I mean, true. But, how many times has the world been saved because of that horrible monster existing?
Exactly.
Am I right?
Yeah.
So he's just kind of grumbling around and being,
like,
generally
where's
upset.
my penis? It fell off when we went to space.
So there's a Doom bot because Dr. Doom, always sends killer robots whenever they're fighting. And I guess Reed just kind of kept one to study it at some point. Because that's a very Reed Richards thing to do, honestly.
Yeah, I think Sue mentions it like very much in passing where she's like, oh, he's just in his man cave, drinking beer, throwing darts and interfacing mentally with the Doom bot again.
Yeah. The dog is in the room in case anyone's just joining us or listening on the playback, and he's whining at me, and he was chewing on a bone, so I apologize for the background chewing noises that were happening. It wasn't me, I swear. Ben Grimm is just kind of pouting around, and suddenly, while he's kind of muttering to himself about how he's bored or whatever, Dr. Doom actually goes through that Doom bot because he's always like connected to it. It's like, well, of course he was using this to spy on you, Reed. Like, you're supposed to be like the smartest human in the world.
Yeah, he actually says, like, because it talks to him, and Ben's like, how are you doing this? And he's like, this is my fucking robot. Of course I can do this. I do this all the time.
Yeah,
it's like,
constantly.
In retrospect, that is fairly obvious.
Every time they think they've captured him, it's like, oh, it was a Doom bot. We tricked you again.
Yep.
So he's like, hey, Ben, there's more to this crazy story of what happened to you guys than you know. And he's like, I can show you the real you if you put on this magical glove that can change sizes for technology reasons. Because in the Marvel universe, if it's a magical character, it's because of magic reasons. But if they're a technology character, it's for technology reasons.
Yes. Yep. It has to be because of science.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't matter how stupid that science is, it must be science.
Occasionally with Doom, it's a little bit of both, I have to say.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
So Ben being the Thing and sometimes not being the brightest, he's like, okay, Dr. Doom, our archenemy, I'll put on this random glove. And so,
okay, Dr. Doom, a really trustworthy and cool guy.
So he puts on the gauntlet thing and is teleported to Latveria, which is, the country Dr. Doom rules. And Dr. Doom is in like a creepy chamber that it kind of looks like a place where certain cults might make a sacrifice or something like that.
Maybe.
It's strange. It's a strange room, is all I'm saying.
It's spooky and gothic.
And basically, then Doom is like, hey, Reed is a real jerk, and he's actually acting like a sort of puppet master. And I don't mean like, your I guess, wife at this point's dad, who was the puppet master. I'm talking just a generic one.
I'm talking more in like a Metallica kind of like, master of puppets.
So he basically is able to convince Ben by just like poking the bear over and over again, essentially, to be like, I can help you. I can make you a normal human again, which never goes well, by the way. Like every time that he's been turned human again, he's immediately like, oh crap, I need to be the thing so I can fight this guy. It's like, you should have learned this lesson about 100 times by now. But he doesn't, of course. So he turns back into a man by walking through a temporal staircase of sciencey bullshit.
Temporal staircase.
Not magic at all. How dare you?
Mm-hmm.
And he's back in New York City, and he's a regular dude. And of course, since now he's a normal dude, nobody knows who he is, and he's running around Yancey Street, which is like his favorite, his famous stomping grounds that he grew up on, the tough street of Yancey Street. And he is just immediately hit by a car, which I was not expecting at all.
No, I wasn't expecting it either.
I was like, of all the things I thought was going to happen to him from losing his powers, getting struck by a car immediately was not on that list at all. And then Doom is like, well, that'll happen when you're not the thing. No, he basically says how the best way to destroy a man is to offer him his heart's desire, which ends up being like the theme of this entire book.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was issue 1. So having never read Fantastic Four, what was your impression of issue 1?
I was like, wow, Fantastic Four is really dark. No, it was. I really enjoyed issue 1. I think it's like a pretty solid, like it's a pretty solid story, like kind of self-contained within one issue. I think the argument could be made that like the characterization of the Fantastic Four themselves is maybe like a little bit moodier than what you might normally have, but like I think it's still pretty true like to the characters, and so I really enjoyed like Ben's like I want to be a normal guy again, and then the way that Doom just plays him like a fiddle is very cool. So yeah, I did really enjoy the first issue. Jonah, what do you reckon?
So this issue was a little surprising to me in the tone being a lot darker than I was expecting, but I guess Marvel Knights as a brand, that was kind of what they were going for. But it's just so weird for that to be the Fantastic Four, because if you're thinking of, let's make a dark, gritty version of our characters, that is not who I would go with at all.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah. So I'm like, I enjoy that the character interactions were very like true to the characters in my experience of reading them, but the tone was unexpected, and the art matched that tone very well, which also made it feel very weird for a Fantastic Four book to have like that dark, gritty look to it as well. Now, that's not to say I didn't enjoy it. It was just not what I was expecting.
Yeah, it wasn't what I was expecting either. Yeah.
So do you want to jump into issue 2 for us?
So Sue arrives at I said sisters. Sue arrives at Alicia's place. Is that her name? Alicia?
Yes.
Yeah. So Sue arrives at Alicia's place in the incredibly stupid looking Fantasticar.
It's never not been stupid looking, by the way.
It's literally a square. It's a rectangle. It's a rectangle.
It's 4 seats, and they break apart so that they can all go on different missions, and then they all form back together.
That doesn't make it better.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah, I remember looking at it and I was like, interesting. Interesting design. Mm-hmm. Anyway, she's like, Reed's being a huge dill hole, and she's really, really frustrated. And Alicia asks if she's like, have you been thinking about Namor again? Meanwhile, Johnny is out on a date, speeding extremely fast in his very, very fast car and being all like, I'm Johnny Storm, and I'm in a car, vroom, vroom. Just, doing his normal thing. Ben, meanwhile, as a regular dude, is in hospital and has lost an arm, which is not, I have to say, a development that I expected in the slightest.
Me either. I also didn't put it together that it is the same arm that he put the glove on until much later in the book when it made that explicit.
Oh,
and then I was like, oh, it all makes sense now.
Okay, well, I didn't realize it until you pointed it out just then. So
wow, okay, that's fair.
Yeah. I think I was just so shocked by the fact that he had actually just lost an arm.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if you're in this crazy, like, altered timeline, you can do whatever you want. That's the best part.
That is true. That is true. And as we all know, getting hit by a car does result in your arm just coming off.
I mean, I've never been hit by one, so I assume you're right.
I, however, have been hit by many, and this arm is fake.
Yeah. I mean, I assumed so when I met you in person that first time in Portland, and I was like, wow, that arm is like 3 times longer than it should be. Weird. But I didn't want to like offend you or anything.
Yeah. And I was like, let me pay. And I just like cracked open my wrist and pulled out a 20.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, back to Sue Storm. Her sister, sorry, not her sister. Fuck, I should not have just assumed their relationship. Anyway, back to Sue Storm. Alicia accuses her of having the hots for Namor. And Sue shoots back, how could she not? Her husband constantly ignores her when he gets deep into his sciencey stuff. So why wouldn't she want the King of Atlantis to just pay her some attention? And Alicia argues that Reed expresses his love through his inventions and his science, and that he's always thinking of Sue. And she's like, I don't give a shit. I just want him to actually fucking talk to me sometimes.
Yeah. Now, Alicia is actually not wrong, but Sue is also not wrong.
Yeah. This was, I have to say, this is probably one of my favorite, like, interactions in the story, because both characters were so well written.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I was going to say the same. Like, that is definitely a thing this book has a real strength in, and it is making these fantastical characters seem very down to earth and human. Like, they're actual people with these weird problems of having superpowers. And, like, Alicia's dad was a supervillain that the Fantastic Four defeated many times. And her power, I guess, I mean, she's blind, but she can also, like, sculpt incredibly well just by feel. Like, she can feel a person's face and, like, immediately sculpt what they look like. That's why there's always statues around her.
None of that makes sense. Honestly, I didn't actually twig that she was blind until, like, way later in the story.
Yeah, I don't think they come out and just say it until, like, near the end.
Yeah. There's a line where Sue first arrived, and she's like, Sue, do you want a towel? You sound like you sound damp or something like that. And I was like, that's a fucking weird way to put it. Whatever, and just carried on.
Yeah. She's got to have that, not quite Daredevil, but you know, it's a Marvel character who's blind, so they have to just be very like hypersensitive to what's happening around them.
Of course. So we are interrupted there by Dr. Doom, and he says to a mysterious man that he's talking to next to a tree that their plan will unfold soon as the family is falling. Ooh, mysterious. And we cut back to Sue and Alicia's like, well, look, soon you guys are going to head off on some new adventure, and it will be crazy and amazing, and you'll whirl back in here with all kinds of new stories and collectibles, and you and Reed's relationship will be totally back to normal. And Sue's like, well, you know, I guess so, but that doesn't make this any easier at the moment. Mm-hmm. Which, again, I'm like, you are both very correct.
Mm-hmm.
Alicia then asks Sue to check the skylight, saying that it doesn't sound like there's rain coming through it. It sounds like something different. Ben is still in hospital at this time, claiming that he's friends with Reed Richards, and everyone's like, shut the fuck up. That can't possibly be true. You're just some dude without an arm.
Yep.
Yeah, they're very mean to him.
Yeah, it's really weird because you'd think that being, you know, a group of people who is used to dealing with the fantastical, considering one of their names is Mr. Fantastic, they'd be like, maybe we should hear this person out. But no, they're doing the, get out of here, random dude who we don't know somehow.
I would have also thought, Because there's a bit, I think it's in the previous issue when he's like running around Yancey Street and he's like, I gotta find this Reed guy, because he also like doesn't really have his memories either, and he's like, I gotta find this Reed guy, and you know he'll help me, and so he's trying to get into the Baxter building, and it's like, no, this is the wrong person, like not gonna let you in, and you would think that they like would have kind of prepared for this eventuality if one of them like loses their powers or something. And yet no, he must be a man made of rocks to be let into the Baxter building.
Well, I believe that it is explained at some point, but not incredibly clearly, how he's actually like a version of him that was like pulled out of the timeline before they went on their flight into space that gave them powers. So he's like, not just that he doesn't have the powers, he's actually like a version of the character who would be significantly younger as well, which was an odd thing, but also kind of explains why the timeline is kind of messy and doesn't make a lot of sense here.
True.
Because I feel like the time travel stuff was very muddled as this goes along.
I think it's perfect and it makes complete sense.
Okay.
So we cut back to Sue and Alicia, and she's like, I can smell seawater. That's weird. And Namor arrives at the door. And Sue's like, holy cow.
He's so hot right now.
He's so hot right now. While this is happening, Johnny leaves his date and just gives her his car. And she's like, fuck yeah, car.
They're so freaking rich because of Mr. Fantastic inventing things, though. So,
exactly.
like, they can just give away a sports car and not even think about it.
Exactly. And so Johnny asks the doorman if he's seen Ben recently when a giant mole monster bursts out of the ground.
I mean, it wouldn't be Fantastic Four without the mole people showing up, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Even I knew that.
All right.
So, Jonah, what did you think of issue 2?
I was actually very interested in how they were going to proceed with this story as far as, like, what's going on with Ben. Like, why would they not know who he was all of a sudden? Because they knew him before he was the Thing. So, like, if you were used to dealing with the fantastical, and say I showed up, but I was like 10 years younger and you were a superhero, would you just be like, who the hell are you? Get out of here.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Or would you be like,
you look like my friend and it's not outside the realm of possibility that you would have been turned younger, but get the hell out of here.
Exactly. So that was weird. Like I was really confused as to the ins and outs of what he had actually done to the timeline, and the book never really explains it. So I guess we'll just move on. But as you had mentioned, the scene where Alicia and Sue are just kind of chatting about the Fantastic Four and their relationship and all that was very, very well written and very like humanizing to the characters. And it really actually, I mean, I already like all these characters a lot and everything, but I was hoping, like, for you being a new reader, does it help, like, draw you in and, like, make you actually care about these characters?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Okay.
It definitely, like, it does really, like, humanize them, but it also, like, I feel like even as someone who only has kind of, like, a very surface level knowledge of the Fantastic Four, I still kind of get what their relationship is like just through, like, you know, cultural osmosis, I suppose. So like I know that Reed is a genius and he sometimes neglects his wife, and that Namor is somehow kind of involved in their like relationship, and that like Sue's kind of into him or whatever. And so this conversation not only humanized them, but also kind of like built on like assumptions that I already had about them, and like, you know, kind of enriched an understanding of those characters that I already had, and just kind of like made me more interested in those characters. So yeah, top stuff.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I really enjoyed this one. I was just hoping it translated well to not really knowing, especially like we had mentioned, you didn't know who Alicia was or what her whole deal was, and it didn't actually seem to affect your ability to follow anything, which is good.
No, I feel like knowing what I do now, like I can look back on it and be like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. But even though I didn't know anything about it, I still just like appreciated, like, you know, great character writing.
Yeah, cool. Any other thoughts on this one before we move on?
Nah, it's good.
Excellent. All right, well, let's get into issue 3. Johnny is fleeing from the hideous mole creature that has popped out of the ground at the end of the last issue. And now I always have pronounced it Namor. I don't know if that's like
no idea.
Okay, because
I just always read it as Namor. And
okay, I never like to correct people because, especially with comic book names, because I called him Magneto for like ever. And hilariously, that Squirrel Girl book we'll be reviewing soon mentions that exact topic several times.
That's true.
That's actually a plot point, kind of, in that book.
Yeah.
Or maybe a running joke would be a more appropriate term. But anyway, so Namor and Sue are, out on the ocean. And Namor is like, check out my sick water powers. And he's basically using them to make it so Johnny can't really do anything because the problem of having flame powers and having your archenemy be a water guy. I mean, you've played Pokemon. We all know how this is going to go.
Pokemon.
So he uses his water powers to get rid of Johnny so that he can be like, hey, Sue, Reed is a nerd and doesn't love you, and I'm awesome, and have you seen these abs?
He's like, I am in scaly underwear. Do you not like that?
Uh-huh. And she does like that, is the thing.
She does.
That has always been like a sticking point in the relationships, is that Namor is very hot, and Sue is like, damn, every time he shows up.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, were I Sue, I'd be like, I love my husband, and the relationship we have is wonderful, but like, King of Atlantis, am I right?
Mm-hmm. So she's like, maybe that's not such a bad idea. And that's where we're kind of getting into the like Doctor Doom trying to push, like, what do they really want? And so he's like, well, obviously no one could love Reed. He's a huge freaking nerd. So let's push Sue towards Namor, who clearly, is completely infatuated with her. And so as he's hitting up Sue, Johnny is plummeted to the depths of the earth where the Mole Man is there with Alicia and is like, hey, I'm going to kill you. Or am I? No, actually, I'm going to make you my crazy like slave for some reason because I'm the Mole
that's
Man.
Right. Yeah. He's like, you're up on the surface flying around and shit. What if I make you blind? That'll give me satisfaction. Yeah. Because I have problems.
Yeah, so basically we find that he's made a deal where he's supposed to get to like blind and keep Johnny as like a servant while Alicia has to marry him for some reason, as if she has no say in this. Like,
of course not.
So,
do you think the Mole Man's a feminist?
I would highly doubt that.
I would be surprised.
Like, if he was, that would earn him a lot of points, but not surprisingly.
Yeah, it would earn him a lot of points, and then he'd lose a lot of points for wanting to destroy the surface world. But
it's true.
Yeah. They would kind of balance each other out, I think.
A little bit, at least. So we get back to Ben, who's not the Thing still. He's still just a dude in the hospital. There's like another patient that he keeps talking to that has like terminal prostate cancer, I think he says.
Yes.
Or colon cancer. And he's basically like, you lost an arm, but like other people have it worse, is basically what this guy tells him. And so Ben is having his pity party, which, I would give people a pass if they just lost an arm and their identity and memory. I'd be like, you take some time, buddy. You need it.
Yeah. You lie in bed and be sad. You go for it.
Right.
Especially since it's only been like a few hours since he lost his arm.
Yeah, this book does move really fast, like surprisingly fast. I thought it would take place over like days, and it's like, this seems to all happen in an afternoon. So, I mean, just another afternoon for the Fantastic Four, am I right? So we find out that that the guy that Ben has been talking to, though, is actually kind of disappeared. Like, we never really see what happened to him. But
I think he dies.
I assume he died of natural causes, but someone's imitating his voice, and he's just like, hey, you know what? I'm out of here. It's like the doctor has been tricking him this last bit. He doesn't know for how long. Yeah. So he's like, okay, I got to find this Reed guy because I can't just be a guy who follows someone else who has a plan all the time. I got to like be my own man. So
got to make my own way. Yeah.
Which honestly, Ben is like, that is kind of his whole deal. Like, yeah, he's a pilot and he's a really good pilot. However, he's always just been like, hey, Reed, what should I do now? And that's kind of what he's realizing, like, maybe that's not a good way to live my life. It's like just my friend bossing me around all the time. And then we get back to underground, and Namor shows up at the Mole Man's kingdom. And he's like, actually, don't blind Johnny, because Johnny's my arch nemesis and I want to kill him. And Mole Man's like, hey, Doom promised me that I could blind him and keep him and then marry this random lady. And then Mole Man's like, yeah, well, I'll fight you. And Namor's like, yeah, good luck with that. And immediately just floods the lair and leaves.
Yeah, I do really, really love it that the Mole Man is like, Doom promised us so many things, and like we need to like have our alliance, and you're just another flunky of Doom's, just like me. And then Namor's like, we are not the fucking same.
No.
Do not ever compare us ever again. And just floods the whole room.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty amazing because like Namor, like the only reason he's listening to Doom at all is because he basically was like, no, totally, Sue will be down with getting with you now. And he's like, oh, okay. But as soon as like things aren't going his way, he's like, screw all these guys. I'm the king of the frickin' oceans. Like, I am out of here. Like, you don't want Namor on your bad side is what I've learned from reading Marvel comics.
This is what I've learned too.
So they managed to escape, but Doom had a giant Doom bot that was hiding in the Hudson River for some reason, who just shows up and starts smashing the wall of the Fantastic Force Tower to break into Reed's thinking room. And he's like, hey, what have you been doing in here all this time? You're supposed to be out here fighting me. And Reed's just like, I've been thinking, guys. And that's the end of the issue.
Yeah, that's how he says it too.
I mean, I assume so.
I've just been thinking.
Issue 3. What'd you think of issue 3? Not quite as strong as the last one.
Yeah, like I'm not going to say like, oh, it was bad and I didn't like it, but it's definitely kind of where the story makes a few like missteps for me. Like I feel like there could have maybe been like another issue like in between, because I feel like the move from like Mole Monster fighting Johnny to them all escaping the Mole Man's lair is very quick. Like it's really, really quick. And it was maybe a little too quick for me. Cause like, then like suddenly like the Mole Man's here now and he has Alicia, and then Namor is in league with the Mole Man, and then he's betraying the Mole Man. And I was like,
it all happens so fast.
It's a little too quick for me. Yeah, so I enjoyed it, but this is kind of the point where I was like, on the story, you know what I mean? Especially because I think the first two were so strong.
Yeah, that's fair. I was thinking, because they obviously wanted to go with this 4 theme, so they had 4 issues, and each one like has all the characters, but kind of focuses on one of the characters. So it's like one was obviously Ben, then 2 was Invisible Woman, and 3 was Johnny, and 4 is Mr. Fantastic. However, the only problem with that, because that's not a bad idea at all. Like, I love that idea. No. The problem is then you're like, oh, but half this issue is actually about Namor because he's so integral to Sue's story. So it's like,
yeah, I think maybe that was the disappointing part, is that like number 1 is like a really interesting look at like what is essentially Ben Grimm's like depression.
Right.
And then like the second one is like, kind of examining Sue and Reed's relationship and what effect that has on Sue and like her kind of overall like outlook. But then like we don't really get the same treatment for Johnny. Yeah. Which I think is a shame, because he is also an interesting character.
Oh, for sure. And that's, like you said, there's just so much going on. It's hard to focus on just that one character that you're kind of setting up to be the main protagonist of that bit of the story.
Yeah. So I don't know, like maybe it would have been nice to maybe have like another issue in between where like Johnny's like underground by himself trying to like, deal with stuff and just kind of like, maybe have like a bit of inner monologue from him and get to like know him a bit better. Because I feel like out of all of them, he's the one that gets the least characterization.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. You can definitely tell the other ones are what the writer was more focused on. Like he's like, yeah, and Johnny's there too.
Yeah. He's like on fire or whatever, and you know,
and it's cool.
Flame on.
Yeah,
yeah. Here's a car.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, I agree with you fully on that one. Like I didn't not like it in general, but it definitely was like, doesn't quite live up to how good the first two issues were.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that's going to bring us to the final issue. Kieran, can you take issue 4?
I will. So we begin with a monologue from Reed Richards, where he confesses that many years ago he performed an experiment on himself and created a Jekyll Hyde-like creature known as Victor.
Dun, dun, dun.
My gosh. After a scientific / kind of spiritual journey, he was extracted from Reed's body and became his own separate entity, a kind of dark Reed Richards. Mm-hmm. Or did that happen?
I don't know. It wasn't very clear.
No, it wasn't. I think it didn't happen, but I'm not sure because, and you're going to have to bear with me here, everyone, as I tell you what happens in issue 4. It turns out that Victor Von Doom has constructed some kind of reality warping machine to try and manipulate the Fantastic Four into destroying themselves. But Reed Richards saw it all coming and this whole time has been working on his own machine in his deep thinking palace. The pieces all fall into place, and Sue finds an injured Ben as the giant Doombot attacks the Baxter building. Sue and Ben use the glove from issue 1 to turn Ben back into the Thing. While the newly reformed Thing, Johnny, and Namor destroy the robot, Sue finds the real Dr. Doom and beats him up with a candlestick. Reed says that Doom could never change who they are at heart, and Dr. Doom is roundly defeated. That is a very, very simplified version of what happens.
Yeah. It does encompass the entirety of what happens, like the highlights. However, I mean, you'd be like, and then on this page, he punches a robot, so it's fine. It's we get it. It's covered. So it was a weird way to wrap it up. Like I wasn't very really expecting. No, but it's definitely plays into that thing of like Doom and Richards are constantly trying to like one up each other when they're younger, and then but it's mostly a one-sided rivalry. It's like Dr. Doom is always like, "You're my greatest rival." And Reed's like, what? I'm over here busy inventing something. Like, you can come help me. We could be buds. But, like, Doom is like, no, screw you and screw your inventions. I'm the smarter one.
Yeah.
And that's really what a lot of it boils down to.
Yeah, it is interesting that it is very much like Doom is so consumed by jealousy of Reed Richards that he's like constantly trying all these schemes and trying to like outmaneuver him and outplay him. And I think like they refer to the machines as being like as games, like playing against each other in like a kind of cosmic game.
They're playing 4-dimensional chess over here.
4-dimensional chess, yes. But Reed is just like, I'm just better and smarter than you are. Mm-hmm. And so like I knew all this was coming. And then Sue is a lot more direct about it when she actually finds Dr. Doom in person. She like, beats him up with a candlestick and she's like, just fuck off. Oh my God. Like, just leave us alone. We do not care about you. Your life is so sad. Why are you so obsessed with us?
Right. Exactly. And it's ridiculous too. Cause like, dude, you run an entire country. Like, pay this kind of attention to your own stuff and you'd be doing awesome. But you're so busy, like trying to ruin this family who lives halfway across the world that you're like a terrible dictator. I mean, you're one of the smartest people alive, and yet your jealousy has destroyed your ability to like make actual progress. Because he's always going on about like, no, I'm not the real villain here. It's actually Reed for some reason.
Yeah.
For reasons I haven't quite figured out yet.
Reed is definitely the real villain, unlike me, the guy who's destroying a building with a giant robot.
Right. So, final thoughts.
Would I recommend Fantastic Four 1, 2, 3, 4? Is a good question. I think yes. I think in the end, yes, I would, but I don't know. I don't know if I would recommend it as necessarily like hey, you've never really read Fantastic Four before, and also you don't really know who they are, you should read this. Because I think maybe if you have either like read a lot of Fantastic Four, or like myself, you still kind of like, you know who the characters are through like other stuff, then I think maybe you'd like get a bit out of it.
Yeah.
But if you had no idea who you are, I wouldn't say this is a very good introduction to them, because it does assume a lot of like, it assumes a lot of prior knowledge.
Yeah, for sure.
And I definitely think the first 2 issues are like really good. They're like way better than the last 2. That's not to say that 3 and 4 are like necessarily bad, but 1 and 2 are just so much stronger. And like, they're just a lot tighter and a lot more precise in their characterization. And it was kind of disappointing to not see the issue 1 and 2 treatment applied to Johnny. Because I felt like that could have been really interesting. The ending is really out there, but I mean, based on what I've read of Grant Morrison before, it's very in character for him to just be like, but it's a game and it's cosmic and it's, you know, like it's
that
all
ending
about
from Grant Morrison, like totally tracks for me too. Like it's,
absolutely.
It's
like I was not surprised.
It tracks for Fantastic Four for me in a lot of ways too, because their stuff can be so cerebral sometimes when Reed is like suddenly the protagonist of that part of the story. That actually all worked fine for me. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, I would recommend it as like, it's a good comic. Would I be like, oh, you've never read Fantastic Four, read this? No, I definitely would not. Because like you said, it does assume a lot of knowledge. And even the character of Alicia is like really confusing because of all the reboots and stuff. It's like, she's the puppet master's daughter, so it's one of their old villains. And she dates the Thing, but then she marries Johnny, but then it turns out that wasn't the real her. It was an imposter. It's like, it's one of those comic-y, like, layers on layers that make no sense by the time you're done reading through. Like, just read her Wikipedia article and you will be completely confused by the end of it. It's great. So when they're like, it's my sister-in-law, it's like, yeah, I don't even know which character she's supposed to be married to right now, because it could be Johnny, but he's on a date, so it's clearly the Thing. It's not actually her brother, but it's like her brother. Yeah, it's like, it's very confusing. So, I mean, honestly, I think those old ones, yeah, they're corny because like they were written so long ago, but they actually are still super fun to go back to. So like Marvel Unlimited, or I think even Comixology Unlimited has like the Omnibus Volume 1 that just has like all the original comics. And
it is on Comixology.
Yeah, and I think that's worth reading if you can handle the old timey comic writing that that those books have. And I'm sure there's, you know, I don't remember there being anything like especially egregious being from the era they were written in, like some comics have. But yeah, this one is a really good book. I enjoyed it, but I'll have to keep an eye out for a Fantastic Four story that I think will get you more on board with the characters.
Yeah, I'd like that. That's the thing, is that like I already like the Fantastic Four, like as characters, because like I just kind of generally know who they are.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I didn't know very much about the Fantastic Four, and like I only kind of knew that like they existed, I don't think this book would make me go, oh, cool, I'm going to go read more Fantastic Four.
You're like, you saw the movies and you were like, man, I love these characters. Where can I get more of them? Did you see any of those movies?
I've seen all. I've seen all 3 of those.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yeah. So I saw the first 2 they did ages ago, and the new.
I never saw that one. But I was gonna say Alicia was definitely in the other ones, those first 2. So so you had seen her before, you just didn't remember.
Yes. Oh yeah. No. She is. She's in. Yep. I think she's in the first one. Yeah. The new Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Is honestly one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
I know. I almost think I have to watch it because I'm kind of a connoisseur of terrible movies, so I feel like I need to.
It's so bad. Oh my god.
All right, well, that's going to be it for this episode, unless you have other thoughts. Okay, I apologize, my dog's outside barking, but Kieran, nice. I'm going to mute so you can tell people where to find you.
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Mr. K_Bennett. You can also check out my D&D podcast, which is for Crits and Giggles. That is at for CNG Podcast on Twitter. Jonah, where can people find you online?
You can find me telling my dog to stop barking in the background. No. You can find me on Twitter at @ARealJonah. We also post pretty frequently from the Inks and Issues account. And also right here, if you're watching live on Twitch, give us a follow, twitch.tv/Inks and Issues. And yeah, we've been recording the show live here most of the time. And I'm going to hopefully start streaming again soon if things work out. I got some new equipment, but I need to test it to see if it actually lets me stream nicely. All right. And with that, we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye. I love you.
Need more mutants, metahumans, or monsters in your life? Then check out these other Geekly Inc. shows, including Cthulhu and Friends, Dear Internet, Greetings Adventurers, Transformation Sequence, and many more fantastic podcasts. You can help us make the show the best it can be by supporting us over at patreon.com/Inks and Issues, where you can get bonus content, early access to episodes, and can even vote on comics for us to review. Don't forget to also leave us a 5-star rating and review to help us spread the word. Want to interact with us on Twitter? You can find us at Inks and Issues or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Inks and Issues. Now do yourself a favor and go read some gosh darn comics.